RogueCon 23. That's right. It is here. It's not back. It's here. It's the first one. Join the ultimate celebration of digital content with its creators, passionate fans, and industry experts. It is all happening in downtown Waco across multiple venues, January 20th through the 22nd of 2023. Now, if you want to go, you got to get tickets, and tickets are on sale at RogueCon23.com. That's RogueCon, RogueCon 23.com. Be there. I'm going to be there. Everybody's going to be there. Let's go. Coming up on the Payoff. If you would have given me the 1990 Philadelphia 76ers roster and said find the alcoholic, the last guy I would have selected would have been Mike Gminski, the 7th overall pick in the 1980 NBA draft, who was in the middle of a very successful NBA career. Before Mike Krzyzewski put Duke basketball on the map, Mike Gminski really already had. And now he is in recovery. Over a year sober, Gminski's life completely imploded after basketball and really during COVID-19. A lot of people have not heard this. It was a conversation I had with the G-Man over the summer, and I wanted to rerun it because it's March Madness and because our guest this week bailed on us like a good alcoholic. And I, like a good alcoholic, had no backup plan. So I go to the starting center, Mike Gminski. But first, this guy. I mean, literally, Mike Gminski was an All-American. This guy, consensus All-American as well. Kevin Souza.
Yeah,
Mike Gminski.
yeah, Pete.
Hey, man, what's going on?
I'm just hanging out. I'm working at the place where I did my inpatient last summer.
So you're at Rebound right now.
I'm at Rebound right now.
I've been dying to talk to you.
No problem.
There's so much to get to, and I want to talk a little basketball too, just because I grew up a basketball fan. I grew up watching you. I remember, Mike. I remember when you got your ear pierced in 1990. I was,
I was it was like a month or so after that. We were on a commercial flight, and this woman was like looking, like glaring at me, and she goes, "You know, you were the reason my 11-year-old son got his ear pierced."
So the Sixers, for people that don't know, at the start of the 1990 season, you said what, if you won 10 games or something, you guys would get an earring? And the story too was that for some reason, I think it was because Jordan probably got his ear pierced. So Barkley got the great idea of betting the team, which was a great thing. And, so we made the bet. We wound up winning, I forget, like 12 games in a row, I think. And but we went away to All-Star break. So I went down to Atlantic City, and I got my ear pierced on the pier down in AC at a place called the Piercing Pagoda. I think they're still around.
Yeah, so I get my ear pierced. Mahorn gets his ear pierced. Barkley comes back from the All-Star game, no ear pierced. So we drag his butt over to the mall in South Jersey and sit him down in a kiosk and get his ear pierced. And so we're going out to playing Golden State, and it's not long after we had all this stuff done. So we came up with the bright idea of putting Band-Aids over our earlobes because you couldn't wear jewelry.
That's right.
So Jess Kersey was a referee, and we were in layup lines, and he comes over to me and he say, "Mike, I saw that story in the paper about you guys getting your ear pierced." And I said, "Yeah, Jess, it's a pretty cool thing." And he said, "Are you wearing them right now?" And I got this look on my face like, yeah. And he said, "Well, you all have to go in the locker room and take your earrings out." So we went in, and for anybody who's gotten their ear pierced knows you got to leave the stud in for like 6 weeks.
Yeah, or you ruin it. It closes back up.
And that's what happened after the game. So the whole rest of the year, our trainer basically had to re-pierce our ear after every game.
And you put him back in after every game?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I wasn't going to go through all that and then have it close up.
That team, that 1996ers team, you guys, and I won't, for people that are listening because of sobriety, we'll get to that. But that was, you guys flirted with great success. That team, you guys won the Atlantic Division. I remember the night you guys beat the Pistons at the Palace in the regular season. I think to clinch the Atlantic Division, you got into a fist fight.
Yep.
It was just, that team felt like they were a team of destiny, and then it just, of course, you run into Jordan and the Bulls, and that is what it is.
Well, and the thing about it, that Derek Smith was hurt that year, and I still believe, we beat Detroit, like we owned them for a couple of years, but we just couldn't get to them. And the playoffs is a different deal. You never know how matchups and things like that are going to go, but. Derek really knew how to play Jordan, and he was a strong physical guy. And he wasn't able to play, and there was just too much Jordan. It was 2-1. We played them on Mother's Day in Philly. They won the game, and then wound up winning in 5 up in Chicago.
Yeah, I remember that Mother's Day game because we were in it for a little while, and then down the stretch they put us away.
And I got upset because I think I had like 24 at the end of the third quarter, and I took one shot in the fourth. We went to Charles because he was our guy, and I think Jordan had 20 in the fourth quarter alone. So it was but I love those teams so much, and Mahorn and Johnny Dawkins, obviously,
Hersey Hawkins.
Percy and Ron Anderson, and we all I remain in very close touch with with Charles, especially over this last year.
Yeah, how has he been? He seems like the kind of guy, and that's the cool thing about Rebound, because you took a job back at Rebound, and that is an environment where Jayson Williams, former NBA player, ran into some trouble, turned his life around. He started up this adventure therapy rehab, and you went down there about a year ago, and there's the counselors, which I guess you are one now, or you're a coach, right? The guys who work there.
Yeah, my official title is peer mentor.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm somebody who's been through the program and helping people who are new to it, and helping their transition, and then I sit in on group therapy sessions every day for 2 hours. So it's been as beneficial to me as it is hopefully for everybody else.
It's funny, right? They say that's when you get sober, you kind of give it away to keep it, and being down there, I'm sure, is an environment where it reminds me. The reason I brought this whole thing up is because it reminds me of sports, the camaraderie. I mean, yep. the sobriety for me. I'm about 10 years sober. It's been about the camaraderie. I never thought I'd find the same camaraderie I found in locker rooms, but with sobriety, man, you talk about a bond you share with people.
Well, and Pete, I knew I was in the right place, and it's funny how life comes full circle. That we had Jayson as a rookie who went at the Sixers, and it's funny. He told me this story last year when I was here, and his dad would come down to games during his rookie season, and about halfway through the year, he pulled Jayson aside and he said, son, said, why don't you stop hanging around with Barkley after the games and start hanging with G-Man? I just cracked up when he told me that story. But here it is all these years later, and, we've remained in contact, but, coming here and getting healthy and starting the journey, really, it just made so much sense on so many levels for me.
And talk about a cosmic deal. I mean, that's a guy that you mentored when he was in the NBA. And just to bounce around a little bit, so you mentioned Charles over the past year. How has he helped you?
He's been unbelievable. He was he and his wife Maureen, they would call down here once a week to see how I was doing. They'd call Jayson up and get updates, and it's just that they were, the people down here, Sean Nassif and Jayson, they were saying, we've never had as many calls about somebody here as we have with you. You know, Coach K at Duke wrote me a letter. You know, all friends and from all walks of my life were calling to find out how I was, and that just gave me, you know, so much strength. It was unbelievable.
That last year, when is your sobriety day? When did you show up there?
Well, it's funny. A year ago to today, I was driving down. My ex-wife and my son were driving me down to detox, which I did in Boynton Beach, which is not too far away from where Rebound is.
So today's July 13th. So I'm guessing this was the last day you drank?
Yeah, I had a bottle of vodka in the back of the car, and they told me to drink on the way down because I was a high seizure risk. I had benzos and alcohol. So, you know, I come stumbling out of the car, and Sean is waiting there. He catches me, and
Sean's the guy who runs the place with Jayson Williams, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm Sean Nassif, and I've been working, you know, closely with both of them here, but you know, they got me into detox, and I was such a high risk that they had I had somebody in my room 24/7 for 6 days. And then medical staff was checking me every 4 hours because I was a fall down risk as well as a seizure risk. So, you know, the detox normally takes 7 days. Mine took 11. And then I went to Rebound after that I initially was going to go for 30 days, but we all felt that another 30 would be really beneficial. So I wound up staying for 60.
Which is a great move. I mean, for me, I ended up going long-term care. I went to a rehab called Cairn in Pennsylvania, and then went to like an extended care place, a halfway house after that. And that to me was one of the pivotal moments because it's just another 30 days or another couple months for the rest of your life.
Well, and you know, and it's funny you say that, and I look at that as probably the most beneficial of my stay. You know, like I said, toward the end of that first 30 days, they said, you know, we think it would help you to stay longer. And I was really fortunate that, you know, my broadcasting season wasn't going on, so I could really concentrate and devote as much time as necessary to that process. And that extra 30 days was invaluable, Pete. I mean, it set everything that I had done in the first 30 days, really gave it a firm foundation.
You know, nothing surprises me in sobriety, right? But I'll tell you, when I was watching the HBO Real Sports where they featured Jayson Williams in Rebound and you appeared on the screen, I was surprised. And it's one of those, and I'm sure a lot of other people in your life, maybe from a distance or fans of yours, were surprised. I mean, I watch your work as an analyst with CBS and doing stuff with Raycom and the ACC, and I knew your career as a player, and you were always, I think, polish is a word that people would associate with you.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, but I just had, you know, life threw a bunch of haymakers at me. The biggest one being the death of my fiance, Sarah, 6 years ago when she was 32 years old at the time. And that just put me over the top. And my drinking, I was grieving and drinking, and I was able to function for a few years, but finally got to the point, especially the thing that put me over, Pete, like a lot of people in this country, was COVID.
Yeah.
And we had to stay in place in Charlotte and North Carolina. And I was basically in my apartment drinking and passing out and doing the same thing every day.
Was your son Noah, does he live down in Charlotte or is he?
Yeah, well, he was with me. He was living with me. He was in the front lines of all this. And he was the one who actually got the intervention that I had, that, you know, quote unquote, you know, moment of clarity.
Yeah.
And I had friends about 4 years, my teammates at Duke saw me and saw that, you know, they gave me some time to grieve, but then they also saw that I was really heading in a bad direction with my drinking. And they tried an intervention then, and I just, I gave them the Heisman, the stiff arm, and I just said, look, I know there's something here, but I can handle this. I mean, all the I just wasn't ready at that time. But when Noah, it was a Zoom intervention.
I was about to ask that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Zoom intervention. I'm sitting there and I'm drinking. I got a vodka on the rocks and some water, and I'm watching TV. And my son, they came walking in, and they put the computer and said, "Dad, we want to talk to you about something." And Sean and another gentleman down here, Chris Penn, he was here at the time, led this intervention and started talking to me about Rebound. And pretty early on in the process, I said, let's go, I'm in. And the thing that I did, which they said hardly ever happens, they've never seen it before. When that Zoom was over, and my son Noah is like the weight of the world was taken off his shoulders. And over the next couple of days, I called about 15 or 20 people that I was really close to and told them that I was coming down to Rebound, to address this. And what that did is made me accountable.
Yeah, the accountability starts up early on. Yep. Somebody who does that means business.
Yep. And they had not heard of anybody doing that down at Rebound. And then you get the people who get the intervention and they say what people want to hear. And then, all right, I'll be down the end of next week. And then the end of next week turns into the end of the month. And, on and on it goes. But I made the decision and committed to it.
As an elite athlete, you're first team All-American, you're 7th pick in the draft. And I've heard John Lucas say it's hard for elite athletes to admit that they can't conquer this liquid or these pills. It's almost an ego thing or a challenge thing. Did you suffer from that at all? Thinking, I got this. I played in the NBA for over a decade.
100%. And that was, the reason I had the career that I did was, I wasn't an overwhelming athlete or, but it was it was willpower and my belief in myself that allowed me to not only have that career, but then to go on and, get to the network level on the TV side. And I just thought all right, I know I got an issue. I'm going to deal with it and, life will go on. And, that didn't happen.
Let's go backwards. When you're growing up, you grew up in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any drinking as you started to excel on the high school level? You start to get recruited. Was there anything in high school that you look back on now with the knowledge you have with your issue?
Oh, yeah.
There was.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, I was, and it was, it was a suburban / rural area. Monroe, Connecticut was where I grew up, and just north of Bridgeport, in Fairfield County. But I was a freshman, starting on the varsity. So I was hanging around with the big boys and going to the same parties. And so I started drinking when I was 15 and started drinking beer. And it was, it was at parties and on the weekend and stuff. And, there were drugs at my high school, but to their credit, nobody on the team ever pushed me to do any kind of even marijuana or anything like that. So, but I did start, drinking beer at a very early age.
But they saw you were special, so they said, hey, you stay away from this. You've got an opportunity to go to the next level.
Yep. Yeah, really. And, I really, now I appreciate that more than ever and did for a long time looking back. They had the sense that I had an opportunity and a chance. And I really appreciate that fact that there wasn't any peer pressure. Even with the beer, I mean, it was just something that I did, but there was nothing with drugs or any of that came from them.
Do you remember that first time you had a drink?
I remember, growing up, I remember trying a beer, when I was younger than that and hating it. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to just be a social outcast, you know? And I just kind of developed a taste for it. And, you know, we had a park, near our, you know, that we used to go and play, and it was lit at night. So we'd go and play, and the liquor stores there closed at 8:00. So whoever was of age, went down there, bought a couple of cases of beer, and brought it back, and we finished playing, sit around and drinking beers in the parking lot. And that was kind of it.
Did you remember what it did for you? Did any kind of like crazy change at the time, or were you just doing what everybody else was doing?
No, it was nothing changed. I remember a couple of times of getting really drunk, but you know, aside from that, I really don't remember, you know, like sitting around thinking, man, I can't wait for this Saturday to come, and, you know, that type of thing. It's just something that, you know, I went to parties, and, you know, people had kegs or, you know, whatever, and never drank any hard liquor, no wine, just, you know, strictly beer. And that was pretty much through Duke and even early on into the pros too.
How did you end up at Duke?
It's a weird story. I was ahead of my time. I actually reclassified. I was supposed to graduate in 77, but the league I was playing in was not that challenging. And then I averaged 30 points a game as a sophomore and 41 points a game as a junior.
Jeez.
And, at the end of my sophomore year, I was like, you know, I can graduate because I had some credits that I pulled from 8th grade that were applied to, you know, to high school. And so it wasn't that hard. And there were other kids who actually did that as well at my school. And I just said, you know, I need to do this for my career. And I felt fine with it academically. Socially, it was a little bit of a stretch, but because I was younger anyway. But, you know, I was getting recruited, and it's completely different back then. And, you know, usually it was going the summer before your senior year and then going into your senior year that you really kind of hit everybody's radar. And I kind of let schools know that the ones that I wanted to go to, that I was doing this, and Maryland was one of them. And when I was down in Maryland, they had a guy from Duke named Terry Chili, who was working as a counselor there. And he came over, he saw me playing. And
this is like a basketball camp?
Yeah, it's a basketball, Maryland's basketball camp. And so he starts chatting Duke up, and I'm like, yeah, sure. I'd love to talk. You know, you seem like a good guy. And so, you know, one thing led to another, and I fell in love with the school on my visit and called everybody else. And I called the coaching staff, and I said, I'd like to commit if you all want to give me a scholarship. And so they did, and they committed to me. And the funny side story is that Lefty Drizel never had another player from the ACC work at his camp after that. Yeah. So it was weird, but it was certainly, I knew from the moment I stepped on campus that that's where I was going to go.
And Duke was not the monster it is today. Duke basketball was not. Was Coach K still at Army, or was he? He wasn't.
Yes.
Duke?
No.
Yeah.
No. He was still at Army, and Bill Foster was my coach, and he was known as a builder of programs. He had gone out to Utah and built that program up in the early 70s. And, you know, in the 60s, Duke they went to the Final Four 4 times. A gentleman named Dick Bupis was the coach, who was an, you know, incredible coach and really kind of overlooked and underrated. And Coach, you know, then things kind of hit the skids when he left, and Coach Foster was building it back up. And, you know, they signed Jimmy Spinarkle the year before me, and then they signed me, and then they got Gene Banks the next year.
Yeah.
And those were the 3 recruiting classes that got us back.
Yeah, those are some heavy hitters.
Yeah. Well, you know, Gene, you know, with his, you know, he was the greatest player next to Wilt Chamberlain that came out of Philadelphia up to that time. it was a huge coup for Duke to recruit him. And he, looking back on it now, Pete, it's amazing that it's 1978, and he was really the first important superstar black athlete that Duke ever recruited. So it was really a cultural, milestone in a lot of ways. And, and he and Kenny Denard came in the same class, and Bob Bender transferred from Indiana, and John Harrell transferred from North Carolina Central right now, and that was the core of our team.
And you guys start to build something there, on the floor, off the court. What is it like? You're just having a couple beers. You're just kind of like, celebrating.
Yeah, I joined a fraternity. I was an SAE, and we had keg parties and socials and functions, and again, it was not everyday drinking. It was just situational and parties, and I calmed things down obviously during the season.
Yeah, so clearly it's not affecting your performance, and is it affecting relationships at all with people?
No, not a bit at that time, and that's why were there flags? There was, I had alcoholism in my family and in the family history. So, that was certainly there. But it never, through my college days and through my pro days, I mean, it was just never an issue. It wasn't, I'm probably more than a social drinker, but it certainly was not a problem when I was in the league ever.
Well, and unfortunately, that was a rough time for the league. When you entered the NBA, what was it 1980?
1980, yeah.
So you're on. Are you on the Nets team with Michael Ray Richardson?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I was front and center for that whole thing, and
share what that was like. I mean, this guy is one of the best players we've seen at that time, but he off the court, the cocaine thing is just starting to gain momentum, and his life goes off the tracks.
Well, and and it was coming down a little bit. David Stern became the commissioner in '83, I think, and he really kind of turned things around. Certainly the league benefited from Magic and Bird coming in. And, Dr. J was at the end of his career, but still really marketable. And Jordan comes in '84 along with Charles. And, so the drug culture of the '70s was on the wane, but still had, there were some prominent people who were involved. And Michael Ray was, I tell people, when he was straight, when he was clean, one of the top three guards in the league, without a doubt. And I remember I forget which year it was, we had the sixth best record in the league, and we had a Christmas party. And after the party, Michael Ray went missing, and gentlemen in the front office for the Nets kind of knew where his hangouts were. And he went to this crack house in New York City and found him. He had been up for 48 hours straight. Went right into rehab after that, and we tanked. The season went south, not long after that, but he was such a gifted player, and a good guy, basically, and he's gotten his life turned around, and he's clean right now, as far as I know.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I mean, and it's, he was a good guy. A lot of us are.
Yeah.
You just got this thing, this monkey on your back that you can't shake until you admit that, it's something you need help with. What was that like for you to enter the NBA during a time like that?
Yeah, and the culture wasn't that overwhelming because I wasn't predisposed to drugs. Again, it was mostly beer at that point, and I struggled my first few years in the league just because physically I was not close to where I needed to be to compete,
bulk wise, right?
Yeah, strength, bulk, because I went from college to playing against grown men.
Yeah,
and that was back in the era when centers actually existed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm playing against Dave Cowens and Wes Unseld and Bob Lanier and Kareem
Moses.
and Parrish and Moses. You go right on down the list, and it was a bitch every night. And you go from that college season to 82 games, and my rookie year I wound up having surgery after 50 something games and got shut down. But it took me until the end of my third year before I really felt comfortable.
What was it like flying commercial, being 6'11"?
Well, what they used to do was the schedule would come out, and it was bare bones. I mean, we had a trainer. We didn't have. I'll show my age here. When we went on a road trip, we would, like, if it was a long, we're like 6 games or so, we'd get 2 sets of uniforms, and we had no equipment manager, and we were supposed to wash our, play a game, wash the uniform that night after the game, hang it up in the bathroom, go on to the next place, wear a clean uniform, and then wait for that one to dry out. And some of the guys weren't diligent in their washing of their uniforms.
You had to wash them?
Well, yeah, we had to wash them in the sinks in our hotel room. Or take a shower in them, one of the two. And traveling commercially was a trip. So anyway, with regard to the airlines, that the trainer was also booked all the flights. So he would meet with the coach, and they'd talk about where they would, they'd look at the schedule and say, all right, we need flights here, just go through a whole year. And he would go to his travel agent, and they'd buy tickets then. They'd buy all the first-class seats that were available. And if that number didn't add up to 12, then it went by seniority, who sat up front. And, the rookies sat in the back. And what they did was, they'd buy a row with 3 seats in it, and they'd buy all 3 seats, but they'd only put 2 of us in a row.
Okay.
And we'd kind of angle in and, try to fall asleep on that trip, because the rule was, if you were playing a back-to-back game, that you had to take the first available flight out to your next city.
Yeah, it's funny. I heard that they did that because of some of the stuff that was going on in the 80s. I remember hearing that. Bernie Bickerstaff said that, and I remember he mentioned that the play was so poor that morning you took off and you played a noon game, guys would play terrible.
Well, this is, if you were a bookie and you had any sense at all, you looked at the schedule, you could cherry pick. The worst one that I had that I remember was my rookie year. We played the Lakers, and my rookie year we played down in Piscataway while the arena was being built
in Jersey. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So we're playing down at the Rack, and
where Rutgers is, right?
Yeah. And we play the Lakers, and we get up the next morning, fly up to Detroit, and then play Detroit on Saturday night. And then we get up and fly to Washington and play the Bullets at 1:00.
Oh.
So we get into National, and we bus out to the Cap Center, and so everybody falls asleep on the locker room floor and takes a nap. We got up, took showers, and went out and got drilled by like 40 points, something like that.
Clearly, for you, it wasn't kind of a huge issue at the time, but some of the guys are partying and drinking and doing drugs, and it's like it's just sloppy play. The product was really poor.
Yeah, and I think that, and Stern saw that, and I think they did away with the 3 games in 3 days that next year, or not long after that. And that was just a brutal thing, especially having to fly commercially. And fast forward, we're talking about my time with the Sixers. Well, the Pistons they were the very first team that chartered, and that was such a huge advantage over everybody else, and that really helped them in those back-to-back championship years.
Hey, was there any drinking on the commercial flights?
Yeah, first class. You'd have. I remember we had our trainer with the Nets. Fritz Massman was like my second father during my early years there, and he used to drink. He'd have Cape Cods. He'd call the vodka and cranberry juice. And we had some guys who'd sit up in front of class who didn't drink, but they would always get the little airplane bottles of vodka and put them in the air sick bags. And if it was a long flight, we'd run them back to Fritz, and he would have some cocktails. So, that was a funny side story of that. But I don't ever remember anybody really getting torn up on a flight out to from this. If it was going to happen, it would have been out if we were going out to the West Coast.
Yeah. So how was it? Excuse me, when you get to the Sixers and you're mentoring a guy like Jayson Williams, you got guys like Rick Mahorn and you got these big personalities, guys that like to have fun. What was that experience like?
It was the best. I mean, Charlie, he tested me early, and I kind of went right back at him. And, that was a team that bonded really quickly. And Mahorn was a big part of that as well. And those teams probably as closely, mimicked my Duke teams as far as relationships were concerned. I had great friends in Jersey. Michael Korn and I are still dear friends. And Buck Williams, who I talked to, he saw the feature on HBO, and he reached out to me he just wanted to make sure I was doing well. And
Buck was so underrated, so underrated.
He was, and just an awesome teammate and an awesome guy. And it was so good to catch up with him. Albert King was wonderful to play with. We had good guys on that team. We just, we had our super, and after Michael Ray left, it was Orlando Woolridge who had problems, with cocaine, and he was our best player, during that time, and just always got sabotaged by that. But the Philly teams were awesome, and winning that, you talked about that year winning the Atlantic Division, it was really special.
So when did it for you? When did the alcoholism start to kick off? I mean, you get out of the league. You mentioned it really wasn't a problem in the league, and afterwards, when did you start to notice? Was it with the death of your fiance that you really or was it leading up to that at all?
Yeah, I was. I mean, in the broadcasting industry has had a lot of casualties, and with regard to addiction and alcoholism, and it's just very conducive to that. And going out after the game, and it's like you tell people, it's you do a 7:30 game or an 8 o'clock game, and you're not done till 10, and you're still really wired and on, and you go out and have a few cocktails to kind of come down and unwind.
Yeah, and you develop close relationships with the guys you're doing games with, and you're on the road with.
Yeah. Your producer, director. I mean, the crew goes out, and you find a place to go get a bite to eat and have some cocktails.
Yeah.
And so, I guess in things with me, it was, I guess people would look at my drinking during that time before I met Sarah, and say, yeah, he probably drinks a lot. But I didn't, again, it never affected my broadcasting, never affected relationships, never affected anything. But her death was so traumatic to me that I couldn't cope. That was the last thing in a series of things that life threw at me that I just threw my hands up and could not deal with it. And the only way that I chose to deal with it was to start drinking even more.
And so you're isolating, right? You're living in Charlotte, and you're just drinking. I mean, you mentioned once COVID hit, you just drank and passed out and drank and passed out. Before that, before COVID hit, what was the drinking like? Like after she dies, was it still extremely problematic? People were noticing.
Yeah. There was our Coach Foster passed away. And they had we had a celebration of his life up in Rutgers, as a matter of fact, and just about all of that '78 team came back, and I was a mess then, and they could see, I was bloated, my face was red. I mean, I was just, people are ordering drinks, and I'm ordering doubles, and finishing them faster than anybody's finishing their drink. So, it really did. That was the onset of the spiral downward. And it really, that in combination with the benzos, that's, as I found out later, that's one of the toughest things to detox.
How did you get started on those?
Well, just the Xanax I was getting panic attacks.
Uh-huh.
And I was, I was prescribed that, and I never really took massive amounts of it. But, obviously there's the warning on it, do not drink alcohol in conjunction with this. And I blew that out of the water. And, it got to the point where I was over a fifth of vodka a day. And, that combined with, with the Xanax is, I just would have this bone crushing depression at night and would wake up the next day. And the only way that I knew to get out of it was to start drinking again, right at breakfast.
You never struggled with calling a game?
No. Well, I made it through that last year before COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, the stay in place literally happened 3 days after the season was over.
Yeah.
And the stay in place started 3 days after that. And as that month went by and, as March went by and then into April, I knew that I was not going to be able to broadcast that next year. I didn't know if I was going to be able to function that next year.
And at that point, it's so far down the road, you don't care really, right?
Yep. And, I was to the point where for, my own inability to ask for help, but with all the events that transpired with that intervention, I was desperately hoping that somebody was going to help me. Just, push me in the right direction or kick me in the butt in the right direction. And that's basically what happened.
As an athlete, as a competitor, how much did it mean to you when you get the intervention and it's Jayson Williams and he says, you're going to come down here with me? And I would imagine that maybe hits you in a different way as opposed to having some therapist you've never met before at a rehab you're totally unfamiliar with.
Pete, it was amazing how, when that Zoom call happened, this amazing sense of calm and peace came over me, and just knowing that he was going to be there to greet me and get me through this. And then the other thing, and these things kept on happening. Like when I got down here, I was seeing a physical therapist. And the guy who I wound up seeing was a trainer for the Knicks for years. His name is Mike Saunders. And, I knew Mike from the early 80s.
Yeah.
And all these people kept popping up in my initial part of my recovery. And it was like God just put all these things right in place for me.
RogueCon 23. That's right. It is here. It's not back. It's here. It's the first one. Join the ultimate celebration of digital content with its creators, passionate fans, and industry experts. It is all happening in downtown Waco across multiple venues, January 20th through the 22nd of 2023. Now, if you want to go, you got to get tickets, and tickets are on sale at RogueCon23.com. That's RogueCon. RogueCon 23.com. Be there. I'm going to be there. Everybody's going to be there. Let's go.
Hi, I'm Hank. You might remember me from a show called King of the Hill. Check out a King of the Hill rewatch podcast. These boys ain't right, but they are funny. Find the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts or at roguemedianetwork.com. I tell you what.
And so you get down to Rebound now, and it's adventure therapy. How does that grab you? I mean, you're 6'11", you're 60 years old, right? You're getting sober, and it's like, okay, now Jayson Williams wants me to jump out of a plane.
Well, the funny part was that during the interview, they were, Sean and Chris were explaining what adventure therapy was all about, and Jayson, and they're saying, well, one of the things we do is go skydiving, and I perked up and I said, there's no effing way that I'm jumping out of a plane ever. So just put that aside. So, we went through that whole first 30 days, and then I committed to the next 30 days. About middle of that, they said, all right, we're going to take a drive. I'm like, all right, fine. And then I said, where are we going? And he goes, well, we're going out to the airport. I knew what was happening. And at that point, I just said, I was in the point of my recovery where I said, all right, I'm all right with this. Let's go.
And that's what starts to happen, right?
Yeah. And so I get in the plane. I meet the guy who I'm buddy jumping with, who's awesome. He had 22,000 jumps in his life.
Okay.
And made me feel really at ease. So we're getting in this plane and we're circling up, and we go to about 11,000, 12,000 feet. And the door of this thing opens up, and then he says, all right, let's, get out on the little ledge there and get out, and off we go. And I just, the free fall was a little, I'm not lying. I was the happiest guy in the world when the chute opened. But then that sense that is really peaceful, I just caught myself looking around and said, man, this is really cool, just kind of floating down. And, we landed, and I hit the ground, and Jayson came over, and we each gave each other a huge hug. And Pete, it gave me the sense like I could do anything, and that's exactly what these things down here are supposed to do for people, to get you outside of your comfort zone, do things that you normally wouldn't do, and just see what the possibilities are.
And sometimes it takes a minute, right? It takes 45 days or whatever, but when you're ready, it's a game changer.
Well, and when I got in the plane and we're circling up, I knew because at the moment before you get out the side door to jump out, you got to give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And I was like, we were close to getting where we're, the drop point. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to land with this plane. Just wasn't going to do that. And so, like I said, off we went. And the whole rest of the time I was down here, and even today, I'll look up at the clouds and go, man, you know what? I was up there and we went skydiving. And, it's just a cool memory. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Absolutely.
Walk me through a day down there. You show up there, and what started to work for you? I mean, because it's a whole new way of life. I mean, you're I was like a raw nerve, and you're somewhere where you just kind of turn it all over. What was that like for you on a day-to-day basis?
Well, throughout the detox, again, because of my, the seizure risk and all those things, I was medicated through all of that. And there's no way, it truly, if I tried to white knuckle it, there was a 50-50 chance that I would have died.
Yeah. I mean, that's why they have doctors, they put you on those tapers, and there's a real good reason for that.
Yep. And I knew that I couldn't just stop in my, in my apartment and say, all right, I'm finishing drinking right now. I knew I had to be in a facility like that. And so I go down there, and I'm taking sleep meds to get some rest at night. So I go through my detox, and I go, and Jayson comes and they pick me up. And so I come out to Rebound, and I don't have my sleep meds. So for the first 4 nights that I was here, I got 4 hours of sleep total.
Wow.
I got 2 nights of no sleep, 1 night of 1 hour, and then 1 night of 3 hours. And I started hallucinating. There was one night, I swear to God, I was trying to sleep, and I looked over, and Sarah was right next to me in bed.
That's your fiance who passed away.
Yes. And I tried to reach, and I couldn't touch her, obviously, but she was as real as if she were alive. And then I was hearing music in my head, which, talking to some people, that's not an uncommon thing either. But I was like pulling people up who were in Rebound and say, "Hey, you got to come up to my room and hear this music." And they'd come up and look at me like I had, two heads.
Yeah.
But I just had, I had visions, hallucinations, all this stuff. And so finally I got on some sleep meds and got into the rhythm of the program. But it's get up at 6:30 in the morning. We go have breakfast. We go to the gym and work out for an hour, hour and a half. And then go to whatever adventure therapy, they do wave runners. We have, there's golf, there's driving ranges, there's bowling, there's, skydiving, there's horseback riding, a whole list of things.
And I guess you got to, I'm guessing, just to cut you off, you got to kind of learn how to fail in sobriety too. Somebody that's been so successful like you, because I would imagine, 10 days off all the stuff, the benzos and the alcohol, you're probably not hitting hitting it right down the fairway.
And the people from my life of drinking, I never got up at 6:30. I went to bed closer to it on the other end than I did getting up like that. So that regimentation it took me a while to get in line with. And, but then, I started working out and the weight started to fall off me, and I was so tired by the end of the day, because your day, afternoons are individual sessions or group sessions of therapy.
And they take a lot out of you.
Yeah, because and I opened up like I never had before in my life. And it's pretty raw. I mean, you've been through it. It's tired. It's tiring. And, so by the end of the day, you're ready to go to sleep. And that's the other thing. I mean, you're going from 6:30 until, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and then you're ready to go to sleep.
Some of the other staffers that are there, former athletes like you, a guy like Jayson, when they exhibit that vulnerability, I mean, and then you follow suit, that's got to be kind of amazing, because we're talking about two guys, you could play 12, 15 years in the NBA with somebody alongside them, and you're not going to get that vulnerability as you're going to get like 48 hours into a treatment center with someone. I got to imagine that's quite the step.
Yeah, because and of course, when I first started playing, that social media didn't exist. None of that stuff existed. And, that became more prevalent as I was in my broadcasting. This would be my 27th year coming up broadcasting. So I really came into it from that side. But, you're in front of the camera and you're doing some national stuff and your life is out there. And then all of a sudden you can Google my name and find out everything you need to know about me. So, through in the cocoon here in the group sessions at Rebound, I felt completely safe of opening up everything. And then just got to be real comfortable with that. And probably the defining moment for me after leaving Rebound was, I had outpatient in Charlotte that I did from September until February of this year. And that HBO feature was really liberating for me.
Yeah, I was about to ask you. Yeah.
It was the first time that I'd said anything publicly about what I had been through in the last year.
For me, even, I'm not Mike Gminski, but I'm down here in Texas. I'm a news anchor, and I was like a little antsy and a little worried about coming out and telling people what my deal was, because you just have, you have fears, whatever, you're in your head about it. And man, to be able to come out and just let go and let people see it for what it is, like you said, it's extremely liberating. And then, a guy like you, Mike, you help other people. I mean, you helped me that day I saw that. Here's a guy who, again, if it can happen to you, it can happen to anybody, is the kind of approach I took when I saw it. And it really gave me a shot in the arm. It really did. I mean, so you are, I'm sure you got tons of feedback.
Well, just in hearing you say that makes me smile. And that's the whole thing. And me coming down here to Rebound, it started to formulate probably as that whole process with, Jayson called me up and asked me to be a part of, that feature. And I said, absolutely. And it's funny, I have like 5 or 6 people that my close friends who still check in on me, every couple of weeks to see how I'm doing. And, without me even saying anything about that, they said, I really envision you being using your platform to help people going forward. And that just clicked with me with what I was thinking already, and then the whole thing came together with me working down here. But I've been really at ease doing things like this, speaking, on behalf of Rebound, or just being transparent. It's been empowering to me, really.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, it gives you that feeling. In my experience, the more you are open with your situation and helping other people, for me, it gives me the feeling that alcohol used to give me, to a degree. It gives me that rush. It gives, okay, I feel, it fills me up, and it works.
And and for me, being down here and being in this environment, being around people who are, doing it one day at a time, and me sitting through these therapy sessions as a facilitator now, that does as much for me as it does, I hope, for the people that are in the program for the first time or a second time. And so I'm, it's really it's a win-win for me. And, something that I can see myself doing for a long, long time. I mean, it's not often at 60, now that you get something new and fresh in your life that really energizes you. And this certainly has done that.
What do you tell somebody who shows up down there and doesn't believe that they can get it or they can do it? What kind of experience, strength, and hope do you pass along?
I think that people may be shocked that I'm as open and transparent as I am. And I don't do it for any other reason than to, there's no cookie cutter for this. And, you have your journey, I have mine, everybody has their own. There are things that resonate with all of us. There are, some things that resonate more strongly. And the biggest thing that I can do for you is just be honest and open and be myself and talk about my experience. And if there's more than a few things that click, that's awesome. But I think they see the way that I'm approaching this, the program and how I work Rebound every single day of my life, that, they see that I have success, maybe something that works for them.
Can anybody go to Rebound, or is it like, that just hit me? Like, can anyone go there? Or
it's pretty. They like to keep it small. There's never more than 4 or 5 people here at one time. So it's not a huge thing, a huge population of people, but that's what makes this special. And that it's very intimate. Everybody gets really, really close attention. And we have a thing that, as alumni, you go through the program, you become part of a Marco Polo group, and we're on that every single day. It's a way to keep all of us accountable to each other. We know if somebody misses 4 or 5 days in a row of that, something's up, and we address that and try to help them the best we can. But it's really like, it's another form of, again, all of us holding each other accountable. And we've all been through the program. We've all had the same shared experience.
For you, any other type of like 12-step work or therapy, or just, it's Rebound full time and you parcel in the broadcasting?
Yeah, I didn't, I have gone to AA, And matter of fact, I mean, tomorrow is actually my 1 year date of 1 year anniversary of sobriety. So I'm going to go with the group here, for that. But this really those therapy sessions in the afternoon for me have been, really the biggest part of my recovery.
You go back to work. I mean, talk about, they were so accepting. You leave Rebound and you're back on the air, broadcasting on a national stage, doing ACC games. How are they at work? I mean, just to welcome you back.
My biggest fans, my biggest supporters. I'm just so fortunate that the coordinating producers of the entities that I worked with, they knew
what are we talking about?
Doing.
Like CBS? Is it still Raycom?
It's
Gray Television. We work for the same company. It's great. My station's owned by. So it is. So it used to be Raycom, and now it's Gray. Okay.
And then Fox Sports got bought by Bally's, so
it's hard to keep score.
It just but the same people have been in place, and they've been my biggest supporters, and I couldn't ask for a better situation. Tim Brando, I've probably worked with more nationally than anybody. He texted me and checked in on me the whole time I was here last year in the program, and keeps up with me, and the people at work have been awesome. Everybody has been. I've been so blessed with the people. Nobody has cut and run or divorced themselves from me at all. In fact, they've been so thrilled about my recovery, even maybe as much as I am. It's funny. I had one of the therapists I was doing outpatient with. She was curious about watching, because she, like when I was doing that, it was during last season, and she went back and she Googled or YouTubed the game for me a couple of years before, and she looked at me and she goes, "I didn't even recognize you."
Wow.
When you were out in the air. And it was really wonderful for me to go through last season with a clear head and a sense of purpose, and so I'd like to do that as long as I can, but it's also wonderful. I'm thinking about relocating down here to Florida.
That was my next question. Do you think you're going to stay down there and work at Rebound full time, or?
I'd like to. I don't know how either one of us knew how this was going to go, but I think everybody is really happy with. I've been here 2 months already and been happy with the results to this point. And, I'd like to commit to them going forward. And what I'd like to do is relocate down here, because from the airport here, they have.
Where exactly? What city is it in, Mike?
We're in Lake Worth right now, which is not too far from West Palm Beach and Palm Beach. And we are physically, as the crow flies, probably 65, 70 miles north of Miami. Inland a little bit from the coast, from the beach, but not that far. It's an 8-acre estate out here, and there's a guest house and 5 bedrooms in the main house, and I'm staying in one of those. I'm on site 24/7. So I'd get a place down here, and there's flights every day to Atlanta and to Charlotte, so I can connect and do my broadcasting from here just as easy.
Yeah.
And then I'd commit to more time here at Rebound. I could do it from April until November, and then do my broadcasting.
And are you going to be broadcasting from those studios in Atlanta and Charlotte this year, or do you think you'll be back out on the road?
No, you know what? Throughout last year, I was at every arena. I did not do a remote game one time.
Wow.
Yeah. How about that?
That's awesome.
So we went to the arena, and we were sitting up in the upper deck or wherever they put us to remotely get us away from the floor. But we were actually in the building. I've never had to do a game sitting in front of a monitor in a studio somewhere.
Wow. Yeah, and it's funny, right? You're one of the few now that go on the opposite end of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, like everybody's done, ESPN is, I think they've wired stuff into people's homes.
Yeah, I
all
mean,
over
I
the
know guys that
country.
I've worked with guys. I do spotting for football sometimes, and I do some baseball myself. The baseball, you get to go there in person, but some of the football, they would send the spotter. I would do it on site, and the broadcasters are back home.
Yep.
And I think we'll see more of that too. It's interesting to see what will develop going forward. That's cool that you were on site for those games. Last thing, where can people find you? Any like way people, if they want you to speak, they can locate you, or is it just get in touch with Rebound and go from there?
No, I mean, they can. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter.
There we go. Look at this.
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn.
What's your Instagram?
It's just at Mike Gminski.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, it's just Mike Gminski. All my stuff will, I'll pop up anywhere you want to look on those three, and then you can DM me, and I'll get back to you. But yeah, no, that'd be, I love to go out and speak and talk about Rebound and talk about my journey, and I think that's my calling going forward.
I mean, you're certainly good at it, and it certainly is inspiring. And it's kind of a fateful thing that I was able to get in touch with Jill, and seeing you on Real Sports. It's just such a shot in the arm for people that are, because that day maybe I was having a rough day, and I saw you on. I was like, wow, and that's how this thing works. So I appreciate what you're doing so much, Mike, and I thank you so much for taking the time with me.
I don't know what I did.
I guess that was it, huh? We wrapped. It was perfect timing, huh?
Yeah. But no, I mean, Jill, and her story, and I mean, Pete, I've had a bunch of people come up to me just when I was in Charlotte before coming down here, saying, "Hey, I saw the feature, and you were, what a great thing that you did," or they'd come up and say, "We have a family member who's having issues and wanted some counseling for themselves." So it's been really powerful for me.
Yeah, it's a big deal, Mike. So I mean, like and there's a stigma to addiction that you can help snap off, so it's great stuff.
Yeah, no, I can't control how people feel, so I don't worry about that, and all I can be is honest going forward, and just the one day at a time has really worked for me, and it's amazing how fast the year has gone by, and I for anybody who says miracles don't happen, I look where I was a year and a month ago, and I was a mess, and here I am working at this place,
Yeah, I mean, Jayson Williams, I saw him say, he wasn't sure that you were going to make it once you showed up there.
Yep. Yeah, I was a hot steaming mess when I fell out of the back of that car and I got down here. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, you're not anymore. That's for sure. This will go up on all the platforms on Thursday, but I'll send you a link to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, you're the man, Mike. I can't thank you enough, dude. Thanks so much for listening to The Payoff with Pete. Once again, I'm Pete Souza. And of course, we are part of the Rogue Media Network. All kinds of good podcasts you can find at roguemedianetwork.com. And of course, you can find this podcast and all those other ones wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, other spots like that.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.
Join the ultimate celebration of digital content with its creators, passionate fans, and industry experts. It's all happening in downtown Waco across multiple venues on January 20th through the 22nd, 2023. Tickets are on sale now at roguecon23.com.
Hi, I'm Hank. You might remember me from a show called King of the Hill. check out a King of the Hill rewatch podcast. These boys ain't rap, but they are funny. Find the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts or at roguemedianetwork.com. I tell you what.